right, that is that. Always love that music, as I say every single time. I mean it every single time. Welcome to the Sober Heathen podcast. I am the Sober Heathen. I'm Scott, and I don't have a hat on today for this video. So this is what I look like. I actually do have hair. If anybody watches this thing and that thought ever crossed your mind, which I highly doubt it ever did. But anyway, nonetheless, I am drinking a nice cold Dr. Pepper with my Dr. Pepper shirt on, doing a solo podcast for the first time in a minute. Uh, had a really busy week and a half of podcasts, a lot of great guests. I need to start filtering those back through, make sure everybody has a chance to catch the link that doesn't subscribe on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, etc. But if you do listen to this and you haven't done that yet, please do like, comment, anything we can do get the algorithm in our favor. And I say our because when I have guests on, you're helping both people out, both parties, get their message out and be able to share some experience, strength, and hope in hopes that the message gets to somebody that needs to hear it. And that's the whole point of this thing. Twitter is doing great. I'm over 1,000 followers now. Thank every single one of you for that. This is like a video diary, I guess. So where I'm at, those of you that are on Twitter, you know that I had a job interview coming up, and I kind of missed part of the job description that said 2 years of sobriety. I was unsure if I wanted to go, and even it's for working for an outpatient clinic. They also do different testing there and whatnot. So that's why it's legit to ask for my sobriety time. I obviously don't have 2 years. I'm coming up on 9 months here in a couple weeks, and that's pretty exciting for me. And I threw it on Twitter. What do I do? I didn't know what the right thing to do was. The right thing could have been to call them and say, "Hey, look, I don't have 2 years. I'm coming up on 9 months. I don't want to waste your time." And maybe they would have said, "Okay, come on in anyway." Excuse me. Or they probably would have said, "Oh, all right, well, thanks for letting us know. That is something they're required," and off you go. No interview. So after talking with people in my close circle, um, and then reading all the comments, I mean, there's a variety of suggestions. But at the end of the day, I started this podcast to be honest and give an honest take on what's going on in my head and what's going on in my life. So honesty was the way to go. The one thing I just didn't do was to call ahead of time. So I went in. I took my bag with me. It's not here next to me, but I have a big bag that I carry a big book. I carry North mythology books. I carry Sumerian books in there. I keep highlighters. I keep all kinds of stuff. I took the damn thing right in with me. And when I reread the job description, I'd seen that they require you to be in recovery for the 2 years, but also to be working like a program, like 12 steps. And so we got to talking, sat down in the interview, and I whipped out my big book. And again, it's not sitting here next to me, but my big book looks like a rainbow. And I mentioned that before. It's highlighted all the different kinds of colors on the inside of the big book. There's tabs, there's different color tabs. I've read the big book several times. I started with the soft cover. Now I have a hardcover big book. I know the big book pretty well. I'm not an expert, but I know the big book and I know the 12 steps very well. I know Bill W.'s work and the way that he was going about trying to explain alcoholism. And so I decided just to go in and just let it all out. Yeah, look, this is where I'm at as far as time. But somebody had said something to me on Twitter, and it stuck with me, and it's going to stick with me forever. It's something that I'm going to use moving forward in my recovery and when I start to work with others in the future, if that happens to be a possibility. Quality over quantity. So I've heard several stories from different people, they've had years and years and years of recovery or sobriety, whatever one you want to call it, and then they go back out, right? Maybe their recovery wasn't quality. Maybe they just weren't drinking. I've talked about it plenty of times. My counselor from Harbor Hall, he quit drinking for 9 years, and then his wife left him because he didn't change. The big book talks about, and Bill W. talks about how it's just a symptom. Alcohol is just a symptom. Um, you have to fix your thinking. You have to fix your actions. There's a lot of work that needs to go into this recovery thing. It's not just putting the bottle or substance down. And so I went in to try to sell my quality of recovery, and she didn't tell me no. We had a good conversation. I shook her hand when I left. She called my references almost immediately after I walked out the door. She said she's going to take it to her higher ups and see what they say, and at worst, give me a position there that's not the one I was applying for, but a foot in the door type of thing, right? Maybe like a trial. I don't know. So I didn't hear. This was last Friday that I had the interview, and I was hoping to hear something by the end of Friday, and that didn't happen. But again, a holiday weekend, the higher ups are probably on vacation. I didn't hear anything today. They probably got a lot on their plate coming back from it. So, tonight's going to be probably another long night of just laying here waiting for that phone to ring tomorrow to find my fate. I've applied to 81 jobs on Indeed the last couple months, and I've been offered. I've went to 2 interviews now, offered a third one, and the third one is to get, I can't remember you get a certification where you can be like a nurse's aide. It's, I don't know, you guys will know what it is. It's working at an old folks home and doing things that I just don't think that I could do. And it's completely understandable. Somebody's like, well, you need a job. You keep talking about how you need money and you need to pay your child support. You need to do something. Well, I just don't know if I can do it. So I also, through Miley, know somebody that works at a place that's looking for a safety person. So I've applied for that in 2 different directions, 2 different avenues. So one of their hiring agency people have my information, so it's out there. So it's just sit and wait again. But the money's got to come in here at some point. So, but oddly enough, I started this new meds, and I don't know how I feel about saying what I'm on, but I definitely tell you if you sent me a message and are curious. But I've only been on it a little over a week, and the really bad thoughts, of walking out into traffic or hoping that lightning strikes me while I'm outside, or a tree fall on me, or I have an allergic reaction. Those thoughts were in my head just a few weeks ago, really bad. And I just didn't know how to handle it. And so talking with my doctor, we made changes again. And this was basically this is the last time I was going to try to solve my chemical issues that were created through alcohol by adding more chemicals to try to offset it. And, you could debate all day with all kinds of different people and different thought processes on that. But I was just done. This was it. And so far, so good. Things aren't better for me financially. They're not better, things, in life haven't changed all that much from a few weeks ago to where my head was at. But those really dark thoughts are gone. So that's a win, right? You got to take a win when you can get a win. So, I mean, how am I going to handle, and I'm going to be pretty blunt here. I get it when people say, well, you got to think positive. I get what you're trying to tell me. I get it. I totally do. But it's sitting here and creating negative thoughts is not healthy either. I understand that. Okay. So my heart wants this job, but my head knows the chances of 9 months, not even 9 months to 2 years, that's a huge forgiveness. I mean, she would have to go in there and probably tell them that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread in order for the higher ups who did not get a chance to meet me to say, yeah, let's bring this dude in. Now, again, if they're desperate and nobody wants to do the job, nobody wants to stand in the bathroom and watch dudes pee in a cup, which would be part of it, um, then maybe that goes in my favor. But you need to be positive and you need to, have a good attitude about things, but you have to be realistic. And I'm really trying to do that without creating a disaster that hasn't happened yet. So how will I take it if I get the call tomorrow? I don't know. Excuse me. If I get the call tomorrow and they're like, yeah, we can't, there's nothing we can do. I don't know. But there's also a lot that's going to go into that, which I won't get into right now. But if I get that job, then there's going to have to be, some movement um, in a couple different ways. Um, None of it is anything that I haven't done before or I'm afraid of. Um, just when you're in recovery for real, when you've made that decision and you put forth the effort and you're trying to, sort how am I looking to say this? You're processing your thoughts and not just reacting. Okay, what's my intent of this thought? Okay, so I'm feeling this way. Why? And your first reaction isn't substance. Go get that substance and feel better, or don't think about it right now. Once you get to that point, I've discovered, okay, so once I got to that point, I have discovered that uh, the things that were normal and easy for me, like hanging out with people or being around certain people who I love dearly, still stresses me out with no fault of their own, but it stresses me the hell out. I not only am I trying to, you know, rein in and keep my thoughts, clear and on point, but I'm worried how I'm acting around them. Am I acting, am I am I being too involved? Am I not being involved enough? And what has happened is, I just come back home or I go to sleep. And again, it has nothing to do with the people that I'm with, nothing at all. It's all me and what my mind is doing, and it begins to get exhausted. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and on for myself. Again, only 9 months. They say, a year or two before any big decisions. I get why they say that. Um, but I also, I'm not a believer of, I'm just not. It's not the same for everyone. Maybe the average is a year, maybe it's 4 years for some people and 6 months for others. And as you get these far reaching durations, maybe that, makes it out to be like a year average. I don't know. The point is, I'm not going to sit here and take the word of people saying you have to wait a year before you do these things. You're not running my life that way. I know what affects me positively and negatively. I am actually able to speak to the people that are in my close circle that I love dearly and let them know, yeah, I think I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna go into this room here. If I would show you the room one of these times, maybe I'll do it on a TikTok. You're gonna have to find me on TikTok. That's not a very big room. There's no AC, the fans in the window. Uh, there's no air movement in here. This place, actually, my next door neighbor, he was my best friend growing up, and his grandma went to school here. It was a one-room schoolhouse. So it's a really old home. And it's, it's, I guess I don't know where I'm going there. It's like thick. The air feels thick. The walls are made thick. I don't really know a better way to describe it. Uh, and maybe the feeling of being insulated, maybe that's what I want. I don't know, but so positives. I did go in and I stuck up for myself in that interview. I tried to sell myself. I advocated for myself. And that was all I could do. And I accepted that and I went in there and I came out feeling pretty darn good about it. Led to a couple good days because I was proud of what I did. Um, it started to even out a little bit. Um, I don't do the solo podcast like as frequently as I was before because there's a lot of things just up in the air. And that's all the more reason for me to do this, right? Like that was the whole point, was to do these podcasts where I could talk about what's going on in my head so that, maybe somebody else that is going through something similar or completely different, but can hear somebody else that's struggling too. Sometimes, like we had a Twitter space tonight and Rich brought up the good point that's saying, a burden share is halved. So I'm sharing, my positives to share the joy, and then I'm sharing my negatives, to kind of cut it in half. Um, if I get the call tomorrow and I'm able to handle it the way that I want to handle it and should handle it, that shouldn't say should, um, the way I want to handle it, I'm really going to push the podcast. I'm really going to dive into it. I have a Patreon set up to do some daily things, to talk about, uh, different levels. I'll upload videos where I talk about my other passions. I'm a big paranormal guy. I did some ghost hunts. I'm a big alien guy. Um, I haven't done a lot of research on Bigfoot, but it's super intriguing. I'd love to have guests on and do that type of thing. But got to find a way to bring something in. So there's some ideas that I'm kicking around to do stuff like that. I mean, the Sober Heathen podcast logo, that fits the whole thing, right? So yeah, I just told myself that I was going to do this podcast tonight. So whether this seemed like it kind of flowed or not, sorry, but it's as real and as authentic as I can get it. Um, one thing I will say, that it has concerned me. I wear these necklaces. These were a symbol of my spirituality that I had found, and I was gaining, and it was red hot when I came back from up north. When I came back home, my spirituality was red hot. I was going out and having bonfires all the time, and staring at the stars and talking to, you know, the universe, to my higher power, I guess. And that's fading quite rapidly, and it does feel different. You know, my skeptic mind, creeps in and says, "Yeah, but dude, this is a stretch." But so that's something that I'm working on. And if anybody has any suggestions outside of church, um, more than happy to hear it. I've been down the church road. The Bible that I have is probably just as rainbow-rific as my big book. I've read it. I've gone through it. It's not for me. I would gladly have a discussion. I shouldn't have made it sound like I don't want to have a discussion, but the solution for me won't be church. Not that I wouldn't try it again. I mean, I went there before as a stone cold atheist. And those are some things actually that I'd like to talk about in my bonus content with on the Patreon, those type of things. My thoughts, my personal thoughts. It's not a dig on anybody's belief systems, but my thoughts on what I've read and what I take from it. Um, so, I mean, if anybody does listen to this and you are interested in hearing that stuff, maybe I'll throw some out there, just kind of test the waters and see what kind of feedback I get, and then then just make it a Patreon thing. So anyway, anybody that does listen to this, thank you very, very much for your support. It means the world to me. Every comment, uh, every like, every view, it means so much to me and the people that are on there. I hope that you can check out the recent podcasts. I'm going to forget people's names, so I'm not even going to mention them. But we've had people, uh, I think I think it's like 14 states or something like that, different guests, and then 2 from Canada, 2 from England, and 1 from Ireland. And the podcast has been very blessed with guests. once I figure out, get through this week and see where these my two best opportunities at jobs, see what comes of them, um, and come up with a plan. I'm going to start hitting people up to be on podcasts. I do have one podcast later for June set up, and I'm excited to do that one. I'm going to be on another podcast with Denise from Canada. She is a guest on my podcast earlier on. Looking forward to that. But in the meantime, if you do listen to this and you want something to listen to while you're driving or going for a walk, please check out the guest episodes. Whatever, my solo ones, just if you're super bored, go ahead. But really listen to the guest ones, because they're super brave people. And I just had a podcast with my buddy Eric, and this dude, big strong dude. You know, he's been to prison, and he's just, you look at him and you're like, whoa, he's intimidating. He's a big giant teddy bear, and he's going through it. And instead of going and hiding somewhere or going and making a mistake of choosing a substance again, he came on the podcast kind of last minute and just spoke from his heart. And he didn't even get through his whole story. We're going to have him come back on and tell more about it. But man, these people, that are doing it and right in the middle of it, super brave stuff. And I really appreciate every single one of you. So if you've been on the podcast, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for your continued support. I'm going to quit rambling on, because I don't need to talk all freaking night. So again, just thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all the support that every single person that listens to this, and on Twitter and Facebook and all these things. The text from Rich Sullivan, who I do the Twitter spaces with all the time, they mean the world to me. So we're going to get through this, and as long as we pick each other up, right? So you guys have a great night, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.